So in today's video, what I really want to do is to dedicate today's video to really anyone that might still be struggling financially, because the story is that obviously there's a lot of people right now that are unemployed inside of our country, and we happen to also be a partial unemployment channel. There were a lot of people that were waiting for stimulus checks to stay afloat during the time when stimulus checks was just a very viral and big thing. And there's still a lot of people that might still be recovering financially because of a lot of the damage that was done during the pandemic. And I totally relate to that as well, because for a lot of people, you may or may not know, but I happen to work in the events and the film industry outside of this. And as we are seeing so many different things happening, like the writers, the actors strikes, and all of the stuff that's been happening, and the shutdown with the industry, back last, when the lockdown had happened, it's been very, very difficult, and we've been ravaged with a lot of difficult moments as well. But today's video is hopefully going to be a little bit of a simmer of light, because we are going to be talking about several signs that although you might be struggling financially, you might actually also be doing better than you really think you are doing, or not as difficult as it might seem right now at this particular time. A little bit of a background story, I think, is to really set the stages, is that there was a period of my life personally, so there's a heart-to-heart aspect to today's video, even if you've seen another video about this, because I was someone that actually struggled very hard financially. Now, how hard, obviously, financially, someone that lived very poor, it's a very subjective and relative number. We'll just say is that I lived through a period of my life where I thankfully had most of my necessities met, such as like shelter and food, but I was living a very, very humble lifestyle where there were definitely a lot of things that I wanted to do in my life, but I did not have access to because of financial constraints and difficulties. Examples was there was a period of my time where I was eating ramen noodles all day, eating pizza. I wanted to eat out, but I wasn't able to afford it. I couldn't even, enjoy basic pleasures like dating because I was afraid to explain to potential partners why I didn't have the money to afford things. So there was a very, very difficult time period, and that's why hopefully there's something to relate to in today's video. But with that being said, let's just get to this video right on the spot. But as always, if you guys enjoy videos like this, remember to smash the like button to share some support, consider subscribing, hitting the bell, and as always, feel free to leave a comment with any questions, thoughts, or if you just want to share some support to this video. It's always greatly appreciated. So with that being said, let's get this video rolling and started. So the first sign that you might be doing relatively well or much better than you really think financially is actually really just the fact that you are in this video. Welcome and thank you guys so much for being here, because the reason is that if you guys happen to be in this video, then it probably means that you're someone that cares relatively about your financial situation. And the reality is that there's a lot of people in our country that either do not have access to resources related to growing their finances, or don't spend enough time bothering to at least work on themselves financially. So if you happen to be on this particular video, hopefully you're subscribed. Consider subscribing right now if you guys haven't done so already. The big idea is that you probably also follow a lot of other finance channels, which means that you're at least spending your time dedicated working on trying to grow your finances, at least certainly becoming familiar with a lot of things that are inside of our world right now. Whether this has to do with things like stock market trading, real estate, economic news, finances, personal finances, credit card, unemployment, stimulus checks, videos, everything in that world, it means that there's hopefully some kind of concern or need to be able to work on improving that particular area of your particular life. This is actually especially true because the reality is that inside of our country, most people do not follow finance channels. The reality is that the financial community, YouTube community, is a very, very knit group, because you don't have as many people following it compared to a lot of other niches on YouTube. There's a reason why you will see comedy videos with tens of millions of views. You will see music videos with hundreds of millions of views, but you will see even the top finance YouTubers with maybe a couple hundred views, but definitely not to the number of views that a lot of the other niches will potentially get. And I think that if that applies to you, then thank you guys so much for being here, because you are hopefully ahead because of this reason of a lot of the other people inside of our country. Now, the next sign that you might be doing relatively well financially, or certainly better than you think, is if you happen to have a savings account, which if you follow finance channels, hopefully you do, because I know that this is something that a lot of people focus on. But even more specifically is if you are someone that has more than $4,500 in your savings account, the reality is that there was a study done with the statistic that more than 51% of the Americans in our country have less than $5,000 in their savings account, which is really scary and actually really sad, but the reality of the country that we live in right now. Additionally, 35% have about $1,000 or less saved, and the median amount of money saved is $4,500. So if you are someone that has $4,500 inside of your savings account right now, then it means that you are relatively above the average, or certainly above the median household savings inside of our country, which means that you are doing above average. So that is the really promising thing, or certainly the thing to hear that hopefully gives you reason to be grateful for at least something that's, happening to you financially right now. Now, the third sign that you might be doing much better than you think financially is going to be related to everything around the world of debt. So even more specifically, if you are someone that has $6,500 or less in debt of some kind, especially if it happens to be credit card debt, which the reality is that you should actually never have credit card debt unless it's for like an absolute last resort for survival. It's just like a rule of thumb in the finance community to always try to avoid credit card debt as much as possible. But according to LendingTree, it was done in a study that the average credit card debt in our country is $6,500. So the total amount of credit card debt in our country, so as in if you were to add all of the credit card debt in our country, it comes out to be around $925 billion. And this amount is only increasing every single year. So if you are someone that either has very low debt or even no debt at all, then congratulations, because it means that this is a sign that you are doing a lot better than you think. And this is something that I definitely related to as well, because as some of you guys know, I made a video where I talked a lot about the reasons why I quit my high-paying job to work for a minimum wage salary. It didn't really get as many views, but I'll put that video at the very end screen if you want to check it out, if you're just curious about my story behind it. But the big idea is that there was a period of life when I lived very poor, and one of the reasons I did was because I had left my job in order to take a minimum wage job to be able to take that time to pursue a lot of things. I already talked about it in that video, so we're not going to talk about it as much in today's video. But the big idea is that one of the things I was really grateful for is that although I made that decision, I was able to graduate college with no debt. And for most of my life, more or less, I never really had a massive amount of debt to have to pay back. So I think that's one of the most promising things, that if you don't have any debt, or if you have very little debt, you are ahead of the pack. And I think that's something to be congratulated about. Now, the fourth sign that you might be doing relatively well financially is honestly just if the fact that you have a lot of your basic necessities met. I think that's one of the really most important things, because the reality is that there's a lot of people that are struggling inside of our country right now that do not even have their basic necessities met. So they're relying on a lot of things like government services, programs, stuff like that. There's a very massive homeless situation that's happening right now inside of our country, especially in a lot of major cities like San Francisco, in New York City, which is where I'm based out of. There's a very massive population of people that fit in that particular category. So if you are someone that hopefully at least has access to internet connection, if you have access to a phone, if you have access to basic necessities like food, water, shelter, then it means that at least you have your basic needs met. And I think that that's something to at least be something to be relatively really grateful for, because it means that you're at least able to survive. And that's something that a lot of people in our country, and not even just our country, but actually in the world, cannot necessarily say the same. There are people hustling on the streets right now outside of my window, and so just knowing this particular fact is something to be grateful about. And then the last and final sign that you're doing well financially is going to be everything related to investing and retirement and the stock market in general. Because the reality is that the stock market is one of those things that is considered very, very foreign to the majority of people. Finance channels are not a good representation of what it's really, really like outside in the real world. Because in the real world, the reality is that many people do not have a lot of savings to even be able to retire. And I know this is especially true because there are people that also follow my channel for a lot of my social security videos, which means that there's a good population of people that are retired right now or that are considering to retire, hopefully even relatively at a young age. And the idea is that if you have a retirement account, you are in a pretty good position, especially if you happen to have one relatively young. But even if you have one relatively at older age, the reality is a lot of people in our country, and actually even just the world in general, do not have the resources to retire. Certainly the resources to retire early, but just the resources to retire in general, many people do not have access to that. So if you have access to be able to retire relatively early, then you are doing relatively well financially, better than the average person inside of our country. And I think that that's something to maybe also feel grateful about. And the other idea is that also a lot of people don't even happen to own stocks or follow anything related to the stock market. So if you are someone that owns a brokerage account, whether this is on Robinhood, whether this is on Webull, I have a link if you're interested in signing up for Webull inside of my description below. Feel free to leave a comment or check out the description because there are links to sign up for Robinhood and Webull, which if you sign up for just the price of $0.00, you will get access to potentially some free stocks to be able to start your account and kickstart your investing career, which means it's basically like free money, which I think is really, really awesome, to really take in. So the big idea is that if you are someone that's on this channel, if you are someone that's, able to invest in the stock market, if you have an investing account, if you have a retirement account, and of course, if you, are above or, past the line of all of the statistics that we just mentioned below about the average debt, the average salary, all of this stuff, then it means that hopefully these are several 5 signs that you are doing a lot better and certainly a lot richer than you really, really think compared to the average soul. Is there ways to improve your finances? Absolutely. There's a lot of ways that I wish my financial situation was a lot better. I work a very, very humble job. I do not make 6 figures, at least not right now at this particular time. Maybe someday, who knows, but not at this particular time. But the big idea is that there's reason to be grateful. And I think that that's really the big positive, bright news and simmer of hope to really get out of today's video. So with that being said, that's pretty much what I really wanted to share in today's video. So if you guys made it to the end, thank you guys so much for being here and also making it to the end. Consider leaving a comment about any questions, thoughts about anything. Feel free to remember to smash the like button if you guys haven't done so. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell as we're making more videos. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well, try to stay employed, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.